Before we dive into this story, Grandma here wants to know, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because here we always share touching stories that warm the heart. Now grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and join me on this journey, because this story is truly moving. My name is Mrs. Margaret. I'm 82 years old, and I was born in a small town in the interior of Sao Paulo called Itapira. I spent most of my life believing I really knew the man I married, a man with whom I shared almost 50 years of marriage. I was raised in a traditional family where we learned early on that marriage was for life. I always believed in love, companionship, and trust, but the truth is we hardly know the person lying next to us. For many years, I was a faithful, devoted, and happy wife, or so I thought. My husband, Oscar, was a charismatic man, hardworking and beloved by everyone. He was respected in our town and held a stable position as a bank manager. He was the kind of man everyone admired, and for decades I considered him the great love of my life. But the truth is, behind that warm smile and seemingly perfect life, Oscar was hiding a secret that would change my life forever. I decided to share this story because I know many women live in marriages built on lies without even suspecting it. I myself would never have imagined what I was about to find out, but the truth always finds a way to come to light. And when it did for me, it felt like the ground vanished beneath my feet. Are you ready to hear what happened? So get comfortable, and I'll tell you how I discovered that my husband had a secret life. Oscar and I got married when I was 20 years old. He was 7 years older, mature, a man already settled in life. I fell in love fast. He was kind, always made an effort to impress me, and I felt special with him. My parents approved of our relationship. They said I was lucky to have found such a responsible and respected man. In the early years of our marriage, life felt like a dream. We built our home, had 2 children, and we were the couple everyone envied in town. He would give me gifts on special occasions, take the family on weekend outings, and always said he loved me. I never had any reason to doubt him, but looking back, I realized there were small signs I chose to ignore. For example, he always came home late from work. At first, he said it was because of meetings at the bank. Then the excuses began to change. Business trips, meetings with colleagues, visits to important clients. I never questioned him because I trusted him. Sundays were sacred for our family, but recently he started disappearing on those days. He would say he had to take care of pending matters, was helping a friend or visiting a distant uncle. There was always some excuse. I thought it was strange, but I never imagined it was anything serious. Until one day, by chance, I found something that tore a permanent wound in our marriage. Life went on, and I had gotten used to Oscar's absences. I kept busy taking care of the house, the children, and my daily chores. I never had any real reason to suspect him until that day. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything started to fall apart. I was organizing our bedroom, as I usually did when I decided to tidy up Oscar's desk drawer. He had always been an organized man, but that week the drawer was a complete mess. There were loose papers, some bills, checkbooks, and an old letter, carefully folded and kept in a yellowed envelope. I found it odd. My husband had never been one to keep letters. Curiosity got the better of me when I opened it. My heart raced. The handwriting was feminine, cursive, and delicate. It read, "My love, I can't wait to be with you again. The days feel longer without you." Our boy asks. About you all the time. He misses you, and so do I. The letter had no date, but it felt old, maybe years. What caught my attention most was the signature, Helen. My blood ran cold. I didn't know any Helen. Who was this woman? And worse, what child was missing my husband? The floor seemed to disappear beneath me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. Oscar had another family. My mind raced in 1,000 directions. I wanted to believe it was just a mistake, a letter he kept for some random reason. But something inside told me this wasn't a misunderstanding, and I needed to uncover the truth. At first, I tried not to act impulsively. I needed time to think, to understand what was happening before confronting him. So I did what any wife would do in that situation. I went searching for answers. I waited until Oscar left for work and started going through his things. I had never done that before. I never needed to. But that day, I felt I had the right to know what was going on. I opened his wardrobe, looked inside the boxes, checked his pockets until at the bottom of the sock drawer I found an envelope full of papers. Inside there were bank deposit slips, old letters, pictures of a child, a dark-haired boy who looked a lot like Oscar did as a child. A knot tightened in my stomach. My husband had a son outside of our marriage. The letters kept going. Some talked about visits, promises to meet, excuses for not showing up more often. One of them mentioned an address, Belo Horizonte. My heart raced. Everything pointed to him leading a double life in another city. I needed to confront him. I needed to know how long I had been living this lie. But I didn't realize the truth would be even worse than I imagined. I waited for Oscar to come home that night. My hands trembled, the knot in my throat choking me. I didn't know how to start the conversation, but I knew I had to be strong. He walked through the door as usual, wearing the same calm smile, kissed my forehead, and asked how my day was. That man had been lying to me for years and acted as if nothing had happened. I took a deep breath and got straight to the point. "Who is Helen?" He stopped in his tracks, slowly closed the door, and furrowed his brow. "What?" "Helen and the boy who misses you. Who are they?" Silence filled the room. He looked at me intently, and for a moment I saw panic in his eyes, but it lasted only an instant. Soon he tried to pull himself together. "Margarida, what are you talking about?" I pulled the letter from my pocket and threw it on the table. "I'm talking about this." He didn't reach for the letter, but looked away, took a deep breath, and rubbed his face. That gesture said it all. He was trying to buy time. "Oh, where did you find this?" he asked. "It doesn't matter where I found it. What matters is what it means." There was a long pause. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down. He looked exhausted, as if he'd been carrying this secret for a long time. And then he said, "The truth is, I was never the man you thought I was." My heart raced. He continued without looking me in the eye. "Yes, I have a son outside of marriage. He's 35 years old now. His name is Kyle." Time stood still. "You have a 35-year-old son with another woman?" My voice came out low and trembling. He nodded. "How long have you been deceiving me?" "Since the beginning." My vision blurred for a moment. I had always suspected he might have cheated on me once or twice, but a son? That meant he had been lying to me since the early years of our marriage. I felt my world shatter. "And do you still see that woman? Do you see that son?" He hesitated, and that was answer enough. My husband had a double life, and I only discovered it after 50 years of marriage. After that confrontation, Oscar finally told me everything. Helen was never just a fling. When we got married, he was already involved with her. He said that at first he thought he could keep both lives separate, but it all became more complicated. When Kyle was born, he didn't have the courage to leave Helen and the child behind, but he also didn't want to give up on me and our family. So he did the only thing he thought possible. He maintained both lives. Over the years, he traveled to Belo Horizonte under the pretense of meetings and appointments, but in reality, he went to visit his other child and his other partner. They never officially married, but Helen knew about me. She was aware of my existence and accepted living in the shadows. The most unbelievable part, he didn't just have one secret marriage, he had two. Helen thought he was married to me only out of convenience. I thought he loved me and was a faithful husband. And in the end, he deceived both of us his entire life. After that night, I could no longer look at him without feeling unbearable pain. 50 years together, and it was all just a lie. My children, our grandchildren, the whole family, what would they think when they found out? For days, I was in shock, unable to sleep. I replayed every moment of our marriage, searching for signs. How could I have been so blind? And then I realized how I had spent my whole life being deceived. I couldn't live like this. This is the hardest moment of my life. I looked at that man, the same man I had loved for decades, and said, "I want a divorce." He tried to argue, saying he still loved me, that we could get through this, that he wanted to fix everything. But how do you fix a lifetime of lies? There was no turning back. He left the house days later, and I never looked back. After more than 50 years together, I found myself alone for the first time. I had no idea what my life would be like without Oscar. So many decades sharing the same home, going through our daily routines, planning for the future, and suddenly everything came crashing down. I cried. I cried like I never had before, not just from the pain of betrayal, but from the lost time, the time I would never get back, the time he stole from me with his lies. But as much as it hurt, I knew I had done the right thing. When I told my children, their reaction was one of complete shock. Mom, what do you mean? Dad had another family? That's impossible. He never showed any signs. They were in denial, refusing to believe it. But when I showed them the letters and documents I found, there was no more doubt. My daughter was outraged. How could he do this to you? To all of us? My son, who always had a close relationship with his father, took longer to accept it. He wanted to believe his dad had his reasons, that there was some explanation that made sense. But there was no justification for what Oscar did. The news spread quickly through the family. My sisters, my nephews, even the neighbors found out. In a small town, a scandal like this becomes the talk of everyone. I was surrounded by comments. Some people supported me, while others said I should have just accepted it, that at my age it didn't make sense to get a divorce. But I knew I couldn't keep living with a man who had deceived me my whole life. It didn't matter how old I was. What mattered was my dignity. In the months following the divorce, my life changed dramatically. For the first time in decades, Oscar was no longer present in my home. The silence was deafening. Loneliness set in, but at the same time, I felt a relief I couldn't explain. It was like, for the first time in 50 years, I was living my own life and not a lie he'd created. I began to rediscover myself. I went back to doing the things I loved, the things I had set aside during my marriage. I took embroidery classes, started reading more, and visited relatives I hadn't seen in years. And most importantly, I learned to love myself again. It wasn't easy. No woman dreams of going through a divorce later in life. But I knew it was my only chance to live the rest of my years in peace, without lies and without carrying the burden of a false marriage. But the story wasn't over yet, because a year after the separation, I received an unexpected visit. It was a Sunday morning. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when I heard a knock at the door. Opening it, I found Oscar. He looked worn down. He was no longer the strong and imposing man I once knew. "Can we talk?" His voice was weak. I hesitated for a moment, but finally said yes. We sat on the porch. He took a deep breath and with teary eyes said, "I messed everything up." I didn't reply. He continued, "I was a coward. I wanted everything, but ended up with nothing. I lost you. I lost the respect of my children, and now Helen is gone too." My brow furrowed. "Helen passed away a few months ago," he explained. "Cancer." I felt no pity, no anger, just a strange emptiness inside me. "And Kyle?" I asked. "He doesn't want anything to do with me," he said. "He said he can't respect a man who lied to so many people." There was a long silence. Then he took my hands. For the first time in over 50 years, Oscar seemed fragile. He looked like a man destroyed by his own choices. "I just wanted you to forgive me." I looked at the man who had been part of my life for so long, the one who deceived me, the one who broke my heart. And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need to carry that weight with me. I released his hands and smiled sadly but sincerely. "I've already forgiven you, Oscar. But that doesn't change anything. The past is still there. I just want to live my life in peace." He lowered his head, and I saw tears fall from his eyes. In that moment, I understood he had spent his whole life running from the truth, and now he had nowhere else to run. He said goodbye, and that was the last time we saw each other. Today, I live peacefully. My children support me, my grandchildren visit me, and I finally feel free. I learned that love can blind you, but the truth always finds a way to come out. And when it does, we have to find the courage to choose ourselves. And that wraps up another story from Grandma. I hope you enjoyed it, my dear ones. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave a like so Grandma knows you appreciated it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more heartfelt stories like this. Oh, and tell me in the comments, have you ever heard a story like this? Grandma loves reading your experiences. A big hug and see you next time.